In the world of correctional facilities, a forbidden romance blossomed between a guard and an inmate, blurring the lines between duty and desire. This tale of passion, power, and deceit exposes the secretive relationships between guards and inmates, raising questions about authority, consent, and ethics. From Pendleton Correctional Facility to facilities nationwide, instances of guards engaging in intimate affairs with inmates have sparked a haunting question. What drives individuals in power to risk everything for a forbidden love, and what are the consequences of crossing the line? Let's find out. Elisha Smith. Love can conquer even the most imposing obstacles, like barbed wires and prison walls. Just ask the former corrections officer who found herself on the wrong side of the law, entangled in a passionate and forbidden affair with a convicted felon. Elisha Smith of Indianapolis faced felony charges for engaging in a sexual relationship with an inmate, Dontel Keys, while working as his caseworker. According to a probable cause affidavit filed in Madison County Circuit Court, the illicit affair lasted until October 2016, when Elisha resigned to work at Marion County Community Corrections. However, investigators uncovered evidence of ongoing communication between the two until at least April 12, 2017. The relationship between Keys and Smith led to the birth of a baby girl on June 15, 2016. Keys, who was serving a 20-year sentence for a 1998 conviction on charges of reckless homicide, criminal confinement, and kidnapping, benefited from Smith's assistance to secure approval for community corrections in June 2017. Subsequent DNA testing confirmed Keys' paternity, and he confessed to the relationship during an interview. As a result of these revelations, Madison County prosecutors brought charges against Elisha for official and sexual misconduct. She was promptly taken into custody and held at the Madison County Jail on a $20,000 surety bond. Lauren McIntyre. In a disturbing trend that continues to plague the correctional system, Lauren McIntyre, a 32-year-old prison guard, became another guardian of the bars to fall prey to the charms of a dangerous inmate, Andrew Roberts, a convicted double murderer serving life in prison. It was in 2018 when Roberts was incarcerated on the Isle of Wight, serving time for the brutal murders of his girlfriend, Louise Loam, and their 10-month-old daughter, Tia, in Tylerstown, Rhonda, in 2003. McIntyre, aware of Roberts' sinister past, nonetheless succumbed to his charms, engaging in a passionate affair with him behind the prison walls. But their relationship was not without its consequences. McIntyre, aware of Roberts' intentions to harm another prison officer with whom she had also had an affair, provided him with her colleague's personal mobile number. She knowingly set a trap, failing to raise the alarm as Roberts attacked the officer, leaving the officer with head injuries. In the Isle of Wight Crown Court, a dramatic scene unfolded. Lauren stood before Judge Roger Hetherington, her fate hanging in the balance. With a deep breath, she pleaded guilty to 4 charges of misconduct in a public office. As the prosecutor revealed the shocking details of her affair with convicted killer Andrew, the courtroom was transfixed. Text messages revealed a passionate and intimate relationship. The court was told that in November 18, 2018, Lauren's flirtation with Roberts had intensified, with her whispering provocative words to him saying, "I have had hands on you, so I guess it's time you got hands on me." Defense barrister Bryony Molyneux argued that Lauren was initially attempting to gather intelligence, but was drawn into Roberts' manipulative world. As Judge Hetherington delivered his verdict, his words cut through the tension. "You quickly moved on from gaining his confidence to a close relationship, passing on intelligence information, and engaging in a passionate sexual relationship." The judge's verdict was final. Lauren was sentenced to 3 years behind bars. Aisha Golsby. In a shocking breach of trust and protocol, Aisha Golsby, a promising prison officer, joined the growing list of prison guards that had relationships with inmates. Golsby, a young and ambitious prison officer, became another string of guards to succumb to the charms of an inmate, following in the footsteps of colleagues like Lauren McIntyre and Elisha Smith. Golsby's relationship with Dino Harrison, a charismatic inmate serving time for robbery and drug dealing, began with a secret affair that would eventually unravel her professional life. Between June 2021 and March 2022, Golsby and Harrison maintained secretive correspondence, utilizing 2 mobile phones and social media platforms to conceal their illicit exchanges and avoid detection by prison authorities. Nevertheless, their secret communications ultimately led to Golsby's downfall. In a glaring oversight, she had neglected to report Harrison's possession of mobile phones, despite being well aware of the strict protocol in place. This critical lapse in judgment compromised her own integrity and jeopardized the security of the prison, sealing her fate as a prison officer. Moreover, Golsby's actions took a more sinister turn when she tipped off Harrison about an impending cell search. Golsby's fate was sealed the moment she betrayed the trust placed in her. She pleaded guilty to 6 counts, including secretly communicating with a prisoner, failing to report a prisoner with a mobile phone, and sharing confidential information. It was a stunning fall from grace for a prison officer who had once shown promise. But that wasn't the only skeletons in her closet. Golsby had also been given a conditional discharge for drug-related offenses, a clear sign of her downward spiral. Mark Patterson, the corruption investigator at Southwest Regional Organized Crime Unit, summed it up best. Her conduct was way below what's expected of a prison officer. In the end, Golsby's poor judgment and lapse in professional ethics cost her 16 months of her life behind bars. Stephanie Smith-White. In the maximum security walls of HMP Franklin, a salacious affair unfolded between Stephanie Smith-White, a 40-year-old prison officer, and Curtis Warren, a notorious Liverpool drug lord serving a 23-year sentence. Their secret love affair, which began in June 2018, involved sneaking around in Warren's cell, stealing kisses in the kitchen and laundry room, and sending naughty messages through hidden notes and a smuggled phone. Smith-White, captivated by the charming inmate, disregarded her training on dealing with manipulative prisoners and fell under Warren's spell. She went as far as getting a tattoo of his name alongside a rose on her body, and reportedly even altered her uniform pants for clandestine meetings. The relationship lasted for 6 months, ending in December 2018, during which the couple exchanged over 200 phone calls in just 3 months. Staff grew suspicious of Smith-White's relationship with Warren and launched a surveillance operation. They caught her passing notes to him and receiving one back, which Warren tried to eat when officers retrieved it from him. The notes were filled with explicit messages, and further investigation revealed a stash of letters and a copy of Warren's autobiography, Cocky: The Rise and Fall of Curtis Warren, in Smith-White's home. The evidence was damning, and Smith-White eventually admitted to the affair, expressing devastation but hoping to salvage their relationship. However, her actions were deemed a grave breach of trust, and she was sentenced to 2 years in prison for misconduct in public office. Warren, known as Cocky, had a history of manipulation and violence, having committed manslaughter in a jail fight in Holland. He had also started relationships with other prison staff previously, making him a highly dangerous individual. Smith-White's defense team acknowledged her catastrophic error of judgment, but the judge deemed her conduct a severe betrayal of the trust placed in her. Now, it's time for today's subscriber pick. A shocking scandal rocked the Encome Correctional Center in KwaZulu-Natal, where a female prison guard became the latest in a string of prison guards that had relationships with inmates. They were caught on video engaging in a passionate affair with a male inmate, a convicted rapist, and attempted murderer. The graphic video, recorded by the inmate himself, went viral on social media, leaving the Department of Correctional Services appalled, embarrassed, and gutted. As the investigation unfolds, details of the illicit encounter emerged. The inmate, wearing orange prison overalls, recorded the 2-minute and 45 seconds video in an office, showing the two engaging in intimate acts. The pair were so consumed by their desire that they forgot to lock the office door, and their actions have now led to a full-scale investigation. The Department of Correctional Services confirmed that the woman did not commit suicide, as rumored, and that the two are not married. The department promised disciplinary action against the correctional officer and the inmate, with the spokesperson, Singabako Nsumalo, emphasizing that such behavior is shameful and shall never be tolerated. But the question remains: What drives individuals in positions of authority to engage in such dangerous and illicit behavior? Is it a lack of accountability, a culture of corruption, or something deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tina Gonzalez. In a stunning fall from grace, a former California corrections officer's secret affair behind bars landed her in a cell of her own, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief in its wake. Tina Gonzalez was sentenced to jail for her illicit affair with an inmate. Gonzalez violated the very oath she took to uphold, engaging in explicit acts in full view of 11 other inmates. Her depraved actions not only compromised her integrity, but also put her colleagues' lives at risk. As a prison guard, she held the power and control, using it to smuggle contraband like razors and potential weapons to her lovers. She even warned them of upcoming searches, putting the lives of fellow guards and inmates at risk. Little did she know, her actions would soon come back to haunt her. A tip-off led to an investigation, which uncovered the trail of deceit that would shock the entire prison community. Her former boss, Assistant Sheriff Steve McComas, was stunned by her betrayal, admitting he had never been more surprised in his 26-year career. But Gonzalez showed no signs of remorse, continuing to communicate with her inmate lover even after her arrest. In a desperate attempt to deflect blame, Gonzalez pointed to her recent divorce, claiming vulnerability and emotional manipulation by the inmates. However, her excuses fell on deaf ears, as many saw through her weak defense. Gonzalez faced a slew of charges, including engaging in sexual activity with a confined adult and possession of drugs and a cellular device in a jail facility. Prosecutors sought a 15-month sentence, but she managed to secure a lighter sentence, 2 years probation and 7 months in county jail. Her early plea and clean record spared her a harsher fate. Allison Sharples. Next, let's look at Allison Sharples, a grandmother and former prison officer who was head over heels in love with Marvin Berkeley, a convicted kidnapper and gangster from Salford. She was so smitten that she tried to smuggle his sperm out of prison to get pregnant. But her plan was foiled when a syringe containing his semen was found in her handbag during a routine search. And things got even worse when a letter from Berkeley was discovered hidden in her underwear drawer at home. Sharples was convicted of misconduct in public office and sentenced to 9 months in prison. During her trial, it came out that she was besotted with Berkeley and wanted to have a chocolate baby with him. She was even jealous of his glamorous girlfriend, Dee Dee, who would visit him in prison looking all dolled up. The judge wasn't having it, though. He said that inappropriate relationships between staff and prisoners are dangerous and can lead to other criminal activity. He handed down a deterrent sentence to show that there's zero tolerance for this kind of behavior. As Sharples was led away in handcuffs, her daughter still declared her love for her mother in the courtroom. Berkeley, on the other hand, wasn't charged with any offense related to their romance. It's unclear if he's still in prison. Shania Begum. In a shocking scandal, Shania Begum, a 25-year-old officer at HMP Birmingham, was caught engaging in a secret affair with an inmate, revealing a significant breach of trust and blurring the lines of authority in an environment where discipline and control are essential. Shania was discovered to have been engaging in a secret relationship with an inmate inside a store cupboard. After suspicions were raised at the Winson Green jail, she was under surveillance. A covert camera installed in the store cupboard captured the intimate moments between Begum and inmate Joshua Mullings, revealing an escalation from flirtation to sexual intercourse. Begum's disregard for her professional duties was evident as she ignored her work radio, even when a colleague searched for her for an hour. A court later heard how Begum's inappropriate relationship with Mullings had been ongoing since 2018, with the covert camera footage showing consensual sexual activity between September 22 and 29 in 2022, while she was on duty. The judge, a stern-looking man with a reputation for being tough, listened as the prosecution laid out its case. They revealed how Begum and Mullings would meet in secret, how they would exchange flirtatious messages, and how their relationship escalated into something more serious. Begum's defense team attempted to argue that she was lonely, vulnerable, and that Mullings took advantage of her. However, the judge remained unconvinced. Having witnessed similar cases in the past, he recognized that Begum's actions went beyond a mere momentary lapse in judgment. As the trial reached its climax, Begum's defense team made one final plea for leniency. They talked about her difficult childhood, about how she had been a dedicated prison officer for years, and about how she was truly sorry for her actions. But the judge was unmoved. He sentenced her to 16 months in jail. Katie Loxton. When the iron bars of HMP Oakwood couldn't confine the passion between prison officer Katie Loxton and inmate Adam Higgs, their illicit love affair sparked a chain reaction of consequences. Katie Loxton, a 27-year-old prison officer, found herself on the wrong side of the law. Her illicit relationship with 32-year-old inmate Adam Higgs led to a dangerous game of cat and mouse, manipulation, and ultimately, conviction. Katie, a serving prison custody officer at HMP Oakwood in Staffordshire, was first drawn to Higgs in July 2021. She spent an increasing amount of time on his cell block, raising suspicions among her colleagues. When questioned, she denied any wrongdoing, but her actions spoke louder than words. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Katie and Higgs had bypassed the prison's security system, communicating through a fake contact on Higgs's cell phone. Their illicit conversations totaled 3,445 calls and over 380 hours of talk time. But that wasn't all. Higgs had a hidden mobile phone, and their social media exchanges often involved explicit activities. As the investigation reached its climax, the affair was dramatically exposed on January 27, 2022, when police searched Katie's home and uncovered 3 handwritten letters from Higgs. This explosive discovery led to a dramatic confession in court, where the pair finally came clean about their illicit intimacy. In the aftermath, Detective Constable Adam McHugh said that Katie and Higgs had manipulated the prison's security measures to conceal their relationship, and that a commitment had been made to uphold the values and conduct expected of public office workers. Higgs was questioned in March 2022, and eventually, the two of them owned up to their secret affair in court. They received a combined prison sentence of 20 months, with Katie being sentenced to 12 months and Higgs to 8 months. Emma Webster. Just like a moth is drawn to the flame, former prison guard, Emma Webster was irresistibly pulled into the forbidden world of prison romance. The 34-year-old mother of 2, who was responsible for supporting the daily operations at HMP Lincoln, began a secret affair and got intimate with inmate Bradley Bramall in August 2021. They would talk on the phone and exchange explicit letters, with Webster even sending intimate photos of herself. But things didn't stop there. Webster started a relationship with another inmate, Jimmy Bennett, and the two talked and exchanged letters, with Webster sending more explicit photos and even smuggling items into the prison. It was a risky game, and eventually, Webster got caught when prison staff discovered a mysterious phone number linked to her. The court was stunned to learn that Webster's actions had not only betrayed the trust placed in her but also compromised the prison's security. However, in an unexpected twist, her defense team presented a compelling argument that her actions stemmed from her vulnerability and deep-seated desire for human connection, rather than any sinister motives. The judge bought it, and on October 26, 2021, Webster was sentenced to 14 months in prison. Olivia Hodson. In a British prison, Olivia Hodson, a guard, got caught up in a risky romance with Laverne Ford Morgan, a convicted killer who was determined to win her over. Their illicit relationship, hidden from the prying eyes of her colleagues, was only exposed when incriminating photos and messages were uncovered in her home. 26-year-old Olivia worked at HMP Garth in Leyland since 2017, tasked with maintaining order and discipline within the prison walls. But in early 2020, she began a secret romance with Ford Morgan, a lifer convicted of murder and firearms offenses. The pair's illicit messages and phone calls were facilitated by Olivia herself, who smuggled mobile phones into the prison to keep their relationship alive. As their illicit romance persisted, a sudden transfer tore them apart. Ford Morgan was moved to another jail in January 2021. Yet, Olivia's resolve to sustain their relationship and intimacy only grew stronger, driving her to employ an array of numbers, phones, and chat apps to evade detection. Her calculated actions ultimately proved to be her downfall. Meanwhile, investigators were getting closer, and on July 2021, Olivia's life started falling apart. She was caught at HMP Garth, and when they searched her home, they found incriminating evidence. A birthday card with Ford Morgan's fingerprints and intimate photos of them together were the final pieces of evidence against her. Olivia got 8 months in prison for misconduct, and Ford Morgan got 18 more months for having banned phones. Detective Constable Becky Pearson, who led the investigation, commended her team for their role in bringing Hodgson to justice. She pledged that they would continue to take firm action and investigate any suspected offenses in the prisons. Kerianne Stevens. In a scandalous breach of duty and desire, a female prison officer, Kerianne Stevens, found herself irretrievably entwined in a forbidden romance with a convicted murderer, Louis Tate, behind the imposing walls of HMP Swaleside. Their relationship went far beyond casual eye contact and brief conversations, escalating into a secretive and illicit affair involving hidden meetings and covert communication. Kerianne and Tate, despite the walls that separated them, found a way to connect through smuggled mobile phones, their forbidden bond growing stronger with each whispered word and hidden message. But secrets have a way of surfacing, even in the most guarded of places. It was during Tate's transfer to another prison that whispers of his affair with Kerianne began to circulate among the inmates. A random comment accidentally overheard triggered an investigation that uncovered a hidden iPhone 6 in Tate's prison cell. This phone was used for their secret communication. On January 8, 2019, prison officer Kerianne arrived at work, oblivious to the impending revelation of her secrets. After being taken into custody, Kerianne disclosed that she was 3 months pregnant, a consequence of her clandestine relationship with Tate. This revelation was corroborated by entries in her personal diary, which documented an ultrasound examination a month earlier, pinpointing the conception date as September 2019, thus solidifying the timeline of their illicit affair. In June 2018, Stevens gave birth to a daughter, and DNA tests conclusively identified Tate as the father, thereby exposing the depth of their intimacy. As the truth emerged, Kerianne stood before Maidstone Crown Court, her once hidden actions laid bare for all to see. She pleaded guilty to misconduct in a public office and the unauthorized transmission of electronic communication, her life forever altered by the consequences of her choices. Tate also faced consequences for his actions, pleading guilty to the same phone-related offenses as Kerianne Stevens. His criminal history, already marred by a conviction for hit-and-run murder, was now further tarnished by this new scandal, solidifying his notorious legacy. In a dramatic courtroom scene, Kerianne broke down in tears as Judge Philip Statman delivered the verdict. Although her offense was serious, the judge showed leniency, suspending her 16-month prison sentence for 2 years, taking into account extraordinary circumstances and the potential harm to her young child. Prosecutor Maria Carrascos presented evidence of the extensive phone communications between Kerianne and Tate, made while she was off duty, including over 50 calls and 20 texts exchanged between October 14th and October 25th, 2018. The night before Tate's prison transfer, their communication reached a frenzied peak, with Stevens making 25 calls and sending 5 texts. Tate, with a history of 12 previous convictions, initially denied any knowledge of Kerianne, but later acknowledged their relationship. The court heard that Kerianne had also been in contact with Tate's brother, and that the phone had been used to reach others on the outside. Despite the gravity of Kerianne's actions, her defense attorney, Bethan Rogers, painted a picture of a woman broken by a previous abusive relationship, struggling with addiction and self-harm. However, the birth of her child was her saving grace. Stevens accepted her wrongdoing, acknowledging her immaturity and foolishness. The courtroom murmured with shock and intrigue as the details of Kerianne's relationship with Tate. This case shed light on the complex and sometimes illicit dynamics between prison guards and inmates, highlighting the blurred lines between duty and desire within the walls of correctional facilities. Caleb Shane Hopkins. It was a typical day at Tennessee's Moore County Jail in 2017, until a stunning secret spilled out. Inmate Jessica Fowler, serving time behind bars, was found to be pregnant. But the father wasn't another inmate. It was a prison guard, tasked with keeping her locked up. The guard, Caleb Shane Hopkins, had been engaging in clandestine trysts with Fowler, who was serving time for aggravated statutory rape. Fowler's discovery of her pregnancy in May 2017 sparked a firestorm of controversy. She filed a $5 million lawsuit against Hopkins, alleging that the sex was non-consensual and coerced. According to Fowler, Hopkins would secretly meet her in the prison library at night, bribing her with cigarettes and prescription drugs to keep their affair hidden. He allegedly warned her to stay silent, taunting that no one would believe her anyway. Fowler's attorney, Ben Rabin, argued that his client, a self-proclaimed lesbian, was incapable of consenting to sex with Hopkins. The pair initially engaged in non-penetrative intercourse, but Hopkins eventually pressured Fowler into more intimate acts. When she requested a condom, Hopkins brazenly replied, "Married men don't buy condoms." Fowler confessed to having intercourse with Hopkins 4 times before becoming pregnant. As the scandal unfolded, Fowler was transferred to another prison, forfeiting her hard-earned jail credits and a potential early release. She gave birth to the baby in her new facility, while Hopkins faced arrest and the consequences of his alleged actions. The shocking tale raised questions about power dynamics, consent, and the murky world of prison relationships. Sarah Williams, a prison guard, tasked with keeping the peace behind bars, but instead, she sneaked around, having secret affairs with not 1, not 2, but 3 prisoners. It all started in early 2020 when Alt Course Prison got wind of her shady dealings. They searched her cell and found mobile phones, revealing a trail of illicit conversations with inmates. The case transitioned to the Northwest Regional Organized Crime Unit's anti-corruption team, who apprehended Williams at her residence on July 8, 2020. Subsequently, she faced charges of misconduct in a public office and was escorted to Liverpool Crown Court for further proceedings. On December 21, 2020, Williams pleaded guilty to 3 counts of misconduct and 1 count of unauthorized computer access. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison. The court heard that she had engaged in inappropriate relationships with 3 prisoners, including Connor Crawford, who was serving time for firearms offenses. Crawford also received an additional 6 months for possessing a mobile phone in prison. Detective Chief Inspector Chris McClellan weighed in on the case, saying that prison staff hooking up with inmates was a total no-go. He pointed out that Williams had started her fling just after joining the prison team, despite getting training on how to stay on the up and up. She had crossed the line by having multiple relationships, sneaking in phones, and spilling sensitive info from prison computers. He also said that most prison staff were stand-up pros, but they had investigated and taken action against anyone who got too cozy with inmates. He encouraged staff to speak up if they suspected anything fishy, so they could bring the offenders to justice. Unidentified prison guard impregnates Kimberly Hockaday. Meet Kimberly Hockaday, a Floridian who had been in and out of prison a few times before landing at Lowell Correctional Institution in March 2013 on theft charges. As Kimberly Hockaday stepped into the prison walls, a secret was already growing inside her. A surprise that would soon set off a chain reaction of shock and scandal. She was already pregnant, a fact that would only come to light later. In September, she gave birth to a baby boy, and with a heavy heart, she relinquished custody to her fiancé. But little did anyone know, Kimberly was hiding another bombshell. By the time she walked out of those prison gates in February 2014, she was pregnant again. The father, she claimed, was a prison guard, an allegation that would ignite a firestorm of controversy and raise questions about what really goes on behind bars. Apparently, the guard had been wooing her with cigarettes just months after she had her first child. But here's the twist. A DNA test proved he wasn't the dad. So Hockaday changed her story and said she had actually gotten cozy with not 1, not 2, but 3 guards while she was locked up. She only named the first guard because she thought the baby looked like him, but she refused to spill the beans on the other 2. However, she was back in prison at the time and was worried she would get sent back to Lowell Correctional Institution if she snitched on the other guards. Vicky White. Vicky White, a respected prison guard in Lauderdale County, Alabama, harbored a hidden side to her life. In April 2022, she sent shockwaves through the community when she aided convicted murderer Casey White in escaping from prison. Unbeknownst to many, Vicky had been involved in a romantic entanglement with Casey, exchanging numerous texts and calls while he was behind bars. However, on April 29, 2022, Vicky's sudden disappearance prompted a widespread national search, leaving her colleagues and loved ones in disbelief. As the search unfolded, it became evident that Vicky had facilitated Casey's escape, freeing him from prison and orchestrating a daring getaway in a stolen police car. However, their taste of freedom was fleeting, as police spotted them fleeing the state and initiated pursuit with a car chase. In a desperate attempt to evade capture, Vicky crashed the car into a tree, resulting in injuries to Casey and tragically taking her own life before law enforcement could intervene. These shocking events prompted scrutiny of Vicky's judgment and the inexplicable attraction to dangerous individuals. Despite being known among her colleagues as dependable and hardworking, her involvement with a murder suspect left many baffled. This phenomenon, termed hybristophilia or bad boy syndrome, has been observed in numerous high-profile cases where criminals receive fan mail and even form romantic attachments while incarcerated. Dr. Casey Jordan, a criminologist, proposed that Vicky White's attraction to Casey White might have been driven by a desire for excitement and a sense of vitality that was lacking in her ordinary life. Ultimately, Casey White was returned to prison, where he would spend the remainder of his days behind bars, while Vicky's tragic demise served as a sobering reminder of the perils associated with hybristophilia. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.